The world is vast, and the centuries flow like gold. Countless heroes have risen and fallen across these warring states. But in the end, the Green Mountains bury them all. There's no need to look back at the ruins of the past. It was the 14th year of Jinping in the Great Zhou dynasty. Inside the imperial city, a memorial from Chun Weiran sat before the emperor. He warned of Jin Yuanwu's constant provocations and the hidden schemes of Qin Kongqi. He argued that the safety of Liangzhou was at stake and that we had to prepare. To defeat a cunning enemy, a general must plan ahead, the report read. He urged the emperor to increase troops in the northwest, secure the borders, and provide funds to the impoverished Liangzhou. He didn't want to wait for the enemy to strike. He wanted the Great Zhou to move first. The emperor closed the scroll. He sat in silence for a long time before calling his personal eunuch. Summon the grand priest, Zhang Qixing, to the palace, he commanded. A few days later, far to the north in Yin City, I was sitting in the Prince of Jingbei's manor. It had been 13 years. 13 years without a golden finger, without a legendary destiny, and definitely without a system. Before I crossed over, my life was plain. After crossing over, it was still plain. I couldn't help but complain to myself. What was the point of being a transmigrator if nothing exciting ever happened? 13 years ago, the son of the Prince of Jingbei drowned. That was when I took over his body. I grew up with fine clothes and good food, but there was no electricity, no internet, and no entertainment. I was bored to tears. My father, Su Tsong, was a strict man. My life was as flat as a stagnant pond. Back in my world, I was a science student, but I was good at literature too. Writing poems or songs was easy for me. To make things worse, this body had incredible talent for martial arts. This gave my father a dangerous delusion. He thought I was a genius destined to rule. I actually wanted to be a useless rich heir. I pictured myself leading a group of servants through the streets, flirting with pretty girls, or drinking wine in tea houses with other noble brats. That sounded like a good life. But my father was the Prince of Jingbei, a man with 20,000 elite soldiers under his command. He was a border king, always watched by the imperial court. He couldn't afford a single stain on his reputation, which meant I couldn't be a brat even if I tried. My mother passed away early, and my father never took a concubine. I was the only child in the entire manor. My father pushed me hard. He told me to treat the soldiers with respect and the people with kindness. He told me to be humble but brilliant, to be a master of both the brush and the sword. I had to be careful with every step I took. Sometimes I wanted to ask him, if you're so worried about the emperor's suspicion, why not just let me be a nobody? Why make me work so hard to be perfect? I'm just a prince, not the heir to the throne. Are you planning a rebellion or something? Compared to other transmigrators, my life was just 8 words: dull, tedious, and completely ordinary. But then, the silence of the manor was shattered. I heard the sound of a large group of horses outside the gates. An imperial decree has arrived, a shrill, duck-like voice echoed through the halls. My father, Su Tsong, led the household to the front hall. He had a fake smile plastered on his face as he greeted the visitor. I knew something good was coming today. I didn't expect it to be you, Eunuch Lu. It's been years since I last saw you, Prince. Eunuch Lu replied with a polite bow. You still look as formidable as ever. They exchanged a few more pleasantries about the border and the emperor's health. Then, Eunuch Lu's expression turned serious. Prince, if you please, I shall read the decree. We all knelt. By the grace of heaven, the emperor decrees, Su Ping, son of the Prince of Jingbei, is young, wise, and of excellent character. He has reached the age of 15. To reward the prince for his service at the border, Su Ping is ordered to travel to the capital immediately to meet the emperor. Respect this. I saw my father's eyes narrow. The emperor's life was clearly getting harder if he was making moves like this. Eunuch Lu handed the scroll over with a smile. Prince, please accept the decree. I accept. Thank the emperor for his grace, my father said. His voice was low, and his jaw was tight. I looked at my father's face and realized what was happening. They called it visiting the emperor, but it was just a fancy word for being a hostage. History was full of stories like this. But something felt off. Why me? Why now? Eunuch Lu helped my father up, his voice smooth as silk. Don't overthink it, Prince. You helped the emperor take the throne. You are his right hand, and he is a wise ruler. This is an honor." My father didn't say a word. His face was grim. My father wasn't like other lords. I was his only son, his only blood. If something happened to me, his line ended right there. As we stood in that tense silence, I could almost feel the weight of the history pressing down on him. Ever since the old emperor passed away and the new one, Ling, took the throne, my father had been walking on eggshells. He was the one who put the emperor there. He'd spent years fighting at the border, suppressing rivals, and securing the throne for a man who now seemed to have forgotten every promise he'd ever made. I saw my father's jaw tighten. He was thinking about how he'd bled for this dynasty, how he'd played the game of politics to clear the path for the third prince. And now, this was his reward? A decree that felt more like a death sentence. I stepped forward and stood beside him. I leaned in, my voice barely a whisper. "Father, keep your heart steady. Things might not be as complicated as you think." Eunuch Lu broke the silence, his hand still extended with the scroll. "Prince, please rise. Don't overthink things." My father let out a long, heavy sigh. He took the decree. "Someone, prepare a banquet," he commanded. Eunuch Lu immediately tried to wave it off. "Prince, there's no need for such trouble." "You've come a long way, Eunuch," my father said, his voice hardening. It wasn't a request anymore. "Your men are exhausted. I must fulfill my duties as a host. Do not refuse me, or I will feel I have failed in my hospitality." Lu was an old fox. He had served 3 emperors and knew exactly when to push and when to fold. He knew the decree said we had to leave immediately, but a day or 2 of delay in a journey this long wouldn't turn the world upside down. "If the prince insists, then refusing would be disrespectful," Lu said with a smooth smile. "My men could use a night of rest." "Ha ha! You are a truly considerate man, Eunuch," my father laughed, though the warmth didn't reach his eyes. "One day it is. Old gal, go to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Tell them I'm hosting a VIP tonight. Tell them to bring out the best wine and meat. I know the eunuch isn't fond of a vegetarian diet." Lu bowed slightly. "The prince is too kind. With the disasters across the land and enemies eyeing our borders, we shouldn't be wasteful." "Nonsense," my father countered. "You serve the emperor. That is a great merit. Besides, if the men eat well, they'll have the strength for the road. My son will reach the capital that much sooner." Lu's brow twitched. He went quiet, likely wondering if my father was hinting that I might not make it to the capital alive. My father just smiled. He was thinking the same thing I was. "Ling, we're all on the same boat. If you play the game this hard, aren't you afraid someone will flip the board entirely?" Later that day, I headed out with our steward, Old Gao, to the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. It was a 7-story tower, the most famous building in the north. Only the rich and powerful stepped foot inside. It was a mysterious place, and even though I tried to dig into who owned it, I always hit a brick wall. My father had even warned me once that the water there was deep and to stay away. "Manager," Old Gao shouted as we entered. A man hurried over, his face lighting up with a practiced grin. "Ah, what a rare guest. Prince, what brings you here?" "Manager Su," I said, looking up at the grand staircase. "My father is hosting a guest tonight. Which floor should we use?" "Since it's the prince, we will clear out the 6th floor immediately," the manager replied. "We'll make it perfect." I narrowed my eyes. I was leaving for the capital soon, and my curiosity was getting the better of me. Can my father not host the banquet on the 7th floor? The manager looked uncomfortable. He hesitated, shifting his weight. "Prince, you see, the 7th floor isn't for guests. It's the private quarters of our owner. I'm not trying to be difficult, but it's simply not possible." "That's funny," I said, leaning in. "I've never heard the owner say the 7th floor was off limits for banquets. Are you saying my father isn't important enough?" The more he pushed back, the more I wanted to see what was up there. Was it someone from the capital? Or maybe someone even more dangerous? The manager saw I wasn't backing down. "Please, wait just a moment. Let me ask the owner, and I'll bring you an answer." He hurried up to the 7th floor and knocked on a door. "Miss, it's Sudi Hai. I need to see you." "Come in," a voice replied, light, elegant, and sharp. He entered the room. A woman sat there, a faint smile on her face. "What is it?" "The Prince of Jingbei wants to hold a banquet here tonight," Dihai explained. "For whom?" "I'm not sure, but likely for the great eunuch, Lu Pai." The woman thought for a moment. I expected as much. Arrange it. Why come to me for this? The problem is, Dihai said, looking worried. The prince wants the 7th floor. The woman paused, then let out a soft laugh, covering her mouth with her hand. The prince wouldn't ask for the 7th floor. It's the young prince, isn't it? He's curious about this place. I stood there wondering who was really behind this place. I had just played my father's card, the Prince of Jingbei, to see if it would open doors. Upstairs, the manager, Su Dihai, was relaying my request. The owner of the fragrance pavilion sat by the window, listening intently. She seemed to see right through me. The prince wouldn't ask for the 7th floor, she said softly. It's the young prince, isn't it? He's curious. She stood up slowly. She spoke of the great Zhou dynasty, how it had lasted hundreds of years, rising and falling like the tide. She pushed open the window and looked down at the bustling streets below. Dynasties change, she whispered, but the people remain. No matter who sits on the throne, they are the ones who toil and live on this land. She turned back to Dihai with a faint smile. Curiosity is natural. Go and ask him a question. If he answers, let him have the 7th floor. I will step away. What is the question, miss? Dihai asked. Ask him this. How can the great Zhou truly prosper? And how can the people truly live in peace and happiness? Dihai looked hesitant. Is that appropriate? Just ask, she replied. He'll understand. The others wouldn't even know how to answer. Back downstairs, I was getting bored. I poured myself another cup of tea and started cracking melon seeds. My guard, old Gao, was pacing back and forth. Prince, maybe we should just settle for the 6th floor? Your father won't mind. What's the rush? I muttered. I'm not in a hurry. Let's give it another 15 minutes. Honestly, I was just curious. If the 7th floor was a no-go, I'd take the 6th. It wasn't the end of the world. Just as I was about to give up, Dihai hurried back, looking slightly out of breath. Manager Su, I teased. Did you go all the way to the border? I've finished 3 pots of tea. Any longer, and I wouldn't have been able to pay the bill. He forced a smile and bowed low. My apologies, Prince. No one has ever been allowed on the 7th floor, so it took some time to discuss it with the owner. Please, forgive the delay. I get it, I said, leaning back. So what did your boss say? Dihai didn't beat around the bush. He repeated the owner's question about prosperity and the people's happiness. I froze for a second, then shook my head. A question like that? The owner of this place had to be some old, idealistic scholar. This pavilion makes a fortune every day, I said, my voice tinged with irony. Inside these walls, there's wine and meat. Outside, people are freezing to death. The world's suffering is the people's suffering. In peace, they are crushed by taxes. In war, they are dragged into the army. They work from sunrise to sunset just for a bowl of rice and a thin coat. They live like ants. I looked Dihai in the eye. Your owner is interesting. They make a killing here while sighing about the hardships of the commoners. Dihai didn't get angry at my sarcasm. Instead, he seemed to be chewing on my words. Wine and meat rot behind red doors, while bones bleach on the roadside. He looked stunned. Forget the 7th floor, I said, waving him off. The 6th is fine. I don't want to force it. Wait, Prince, Dihai said, snapping out of it. Why the change of heart? After hearing what I just said, he realized I wasn't just some spoiled brat. I had a vision. No reason, I replied. Is it because of the question? He pressed. I rubbed my chin, thinking it over. I can answer your boss's question, but it's meaningless. Why? When the world falls, the people suffer, I said. But even when the world prospers, the people still suffer. Dihai looked confused. He bowed deeply. Please, enlighten me. I wouldn't call it enlightening, I said. When the world falls, war turns human life into grass. People starve. That's obvious. But when the world prospers, who is actually prospering? Is it the farmers? Or is it the officials, the noble families, and the wealthy merchants? I don't understand, Dihai admitted. If the country is great, surely everyone benefits? Food, clothes, no disasters. Isn't that enough? I sighed. As someone from another world, my ideas were fundamentally different. Just being full isn't prosperity, I told him. Animals live just to be full. Does that mean they are prospering? Survival is an instinct. But in this country, 90% of the resources are held by the top 1%, the court, the nobles, the officials. How can the people be happy when they are barely surviving? Dihai was speechless. He stood there in silence for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Then how do we make the people truly wealthy?" I shook my head. It was a question with an answer, yet no solution. Even in the modern world I came from, true equality was a myth. Resources always end up in the hands of the few. But since the owner wanted to hear it, I decided to speak my mind. Kings fight for the world. Lords fight for land. Officials fight for power. And the people? They fight for a single meal. True stability means no war so they can rest. No heavy taxes so they can keep their grain. No class oppression so they can rise. No exploitation so they can live. I paused, looking at the ceiling. Every dynasty falls because the pressure at the bottom explodes. Water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn it. Dihai stared at me, completely shaken. The son of the Prince of Jingbei truly has the talent to rule a kingdom, he whispered. But if you have such insight, why say it's meaningless? I shrugged, feeling the weight of reality. Because everyone is selfish. You, me, everyone. To achieve what I just said, you would have to strip the wealth and power from the people who hold it all. That's harder than starting a new country. You'd be lucky to just be executed. More likely, your entire bloodline would be erased. Dihai nodded slowly. He understood. No one in power would ever willingly give it up. Please wait, Prince. I must relay this to the owner immediately. Whatever, I said, leaning back in my chair. Dihai scrambled back up to the 7th floor. He repeated every word I said to the woman behind the screen. She sat in silence for a long time, processing my perspective. I didn't expect him to have such insight, she finally said. His talent is immense. Even the great scholars of the Mystery Pavilion would be impressed by this. The Mystery Pavilion was famous for ranking the greatest minds and warriors in the world. For her to compare me to them was the highest praise possible. I didn't know it yet, but I had just changed the game. Dihai nodded, clearly taking my words to heart. I could tell he was impressed. Above us, the owner of the Fragrant Heaven Pavilion sat behind her screen, processing everything. Dihai, she called out softly. Relay everything he said to the capital. When the timing is right, I want to meet this Prince of Jingbei for myself. I'm leaving for the capital tonight. Arrange the banquet on the 7th floor, as he asked. Go now. Dihai turned to leave, but she stopped him. The road to the capital is long. The people in the imperial court are unpredictable, and there will likely be trouble on his journey. Have the men from the Yellow City Bureau follow him the entire way. If things go wrong, do your best to save him. Dihai bowed low. Understood, Mississippi. A few moments later, Dihai made his way back down to me. He caught me in the middle of hitting on a pretty young girl nearby. His face twitched. I could practically see him wondering if the profound strategist he just spoke to was the same person currently acting like a shameless playboy. He coughed twice to get my attention. I didn't even blink. I just looked at him and smiled. Manager Sue, you've got a nasty cough. You should get that checked out. Dihai's smile was strained. The prince's powers of observation are truly unmatched. Even my minor ailments can't escape you. He cleared his throat. Anyway, my master says it is an honor to host the Prince of Jingbei. She believes you are a rare talent. The 7th floor is yours for the banquet. All expenses will be covered by us as a gesture of respect. Your master is quite generous, I replied, leaning back. I won't decline. I'll remember this favor. It's a small matter, Prince. Please, don't overthink it. Since you're being so helpful, there's one more thing, I said. I signaled to my steward, Old Gao. He stepped forward and handed Dihai a thick stack of banknotes. Dihai glanced at the money and nearly choked. It was 30,000 taels of silver. Prince, what is this for? Put that money in a stone box, I whispered. Make sure it finds its way into the hands of the guests tonight. I'll leave the details of how you pull that off to you. Dihai looked at the money, then at me. He looked speechless. Just moments ago, I was preaching about the suffering of the common people. Now, I was shamelessly bribing high-ranking eunuchs. He didn't know what to make of me. Up on the 7th floor, the owner tucked a stray hair behind her ear and smiled. Su Yongning, it's been years. You've certainly become interesting. Dihai didn't let my antics change his opinion of me, though. He knew I wasn't just some loudmouth. My insights on the state of the world were far beyond any whining scholar or spoiled noble. He bowed and went to handle the arrangements. Let's go, old gal, I said, heading for the exit. On the way back to the palace, I grilled old Gao about the fragrant heaven pavilion. He'd been with the Prince of Jingbei for over a decade. He knew everything about the north. I don't know much about that place, master, Gao admitted. It was built a few years ago and quickly became famous. No matter how powerful the official or wealthy the merchant, no one dares cause trouble there. A few years back, the son of the prefect of Jinan tried to force himself on a girl there. That same night, his legs were broken and he was dumped at his father's front gate. I heard about that, I nodded. I thought the prefect would have burned the place down. But the whole thing just vanished. That's because the prefect did try to surround the building with troops, Gao whispered. But the prince, your father, showed up personally. He cursed the man out and chased him back to Jinan. So the old man knows exactly what that place is, I muttered. When we got back to the palace, old Gao reported everything to my father, Sutsam. He told him about my speech and my actions at the pavilion. My father listened in silence, then sighed. The kid has some insight, my father muttered. But these are dangerous times. Those words will reach the emperor's ears soon enough. He gripped his teacup, his knuckles white. 10 years, what are you planning? I only have one son. Suddenly, a terrifying aura exploded from him. The teacup in his hand shattered into dust. He stood there, staring into the distance, looking like a god of war. He was a peak 8th realm expert, one of the strongest men alive. Whatever you're planning, he growled to the empty air, Su Yongning is my bottom line. In a quiet corner of the palace, the eunuch Lu Pai opened his eyes. He felt the pressure. The Prince of Jingbei is close to the 9th realm, he whispered. If he takes that step, the world will fall into chaos. In this world, martial arts were everything. There were 9 realms. The 9th was called the Void Realm, the realm of legends. Only a handful of people in 1,000 years had ever reached it. My father was ranked 2nd on the world's power list. He was half-step into the 9th realm. I pushed the door open and walked in on him. Hey, old man, what's with the drama? Did you forget to take your meds today? My father glared at me. You brat, how many times have I told you to stay low? Why did you have to make a scene at the pavilion? I shrugged and grinned. I wanted to stay low, but my talent just wouldn't allow it. You little. He reached for his belt like he was going to whip me. I'm too old for that, I said, cutting him off. Now tell me, what's the deal with the fragrant heaven pavilion? Old Gao already told me you protected them. Old Gao, standing in the corner, broke into a cold sweat. Master, please, don't drag me into this. My father glanced at the steward, then back at me. It's none of your business. Stop sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. If I'm a nosy dog, what does that make you? I shot back. You're my father. Just tell me. My father went quiet. He looked at me for a long time before finally sighing. Yongning, stay away from that pavilion. The water there is too deep for you. It's connected to someone in the capital. That's all you need to know. I knew it, I muttered. Big background. Enough, my father said, waving me off. You leave for the capital tomorrow. Go pack your things. I turned and walked out as the sun began to set, the sky turning a deep, bloody red. The setting sun painted the gates of the Prince of Jingbei's mansion in a deep, bloody crimson. Around the estate, shops began lighting their lanterns one by one. The streets grew quiet as people headed home, sitting by their doorways to enjoy a rare moment of peace. But over at the fragrant heaven pavilion, the night was just beginning. The lights were dazzling, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive wine. Music drifted from the main hall, which was already packed with guests. It wasn't long before Lu Pai arrived at the pavilion, following my father, Sutsam. Lu Pai looked up at the grand sign hanging above the entrance and sighed to himself. He knew that whatever money he hoped to make tonight wouldn't come easy. I am the manager of the fragrant heaven pavilion. It is an honor to welcome the prince, Su Dihai said, rushing forward to bow as soon as he saw my father. My father smiled, but his eyes were sharp. Manager Su, it's been a while. You're looking energetic. With the prince and his esteemed guest here, I have to be at my best, Su Dihai replied with a practiced grin. If I neglected you, my boss would never forgive me. Is that so? My father brushed off his sleeves, his expression turning cold. Your boss is quite a character. This pavilion is famous throughout the north. To be invited to a banquet on the 7th floor, I should be the one feeling flattered. Su Dihai's eyes flickered with nerves, but he quickly tried to change the subject. You're joking, Prince. You've guarded the northern border for over 10 years to give us this peace. My boss has admired you for a long time. He's always wanted to meet you, but he didn't want to disturb your busy military schedule. My father let out a dry laugh and pinched the bridge of his nose. The border has been stable for years. I'm just an idle man now. What busy military schedule? You're not being honest, Manager Sue. He paused, his gaze turning dark. Actually, I shouldn't call you manager, should I? I should call you Inspector Sue of the Bureau of Military Affairs. The air turned freezing. The silence was sudden and heavy. My father hadn't held back at all. By exposing Su Dihai's true identity right in front of the palace eunuch Lu Pai, he was essentially tearing off the mask of politeness. My father knew the political climate. The emperor's power was weakening, and he was desperate to consolidate control. That meant a purge was coming. Everyone had to pick a side. The emperor wanted total authority, but the powerful officials who currently held the strings weren't going to sit back and let it happen. They would try to sway my father or find a way to neutralize him. And I was the weak point. I was the only son of a powerful border prince who held a massive army. Controlling me meant controlling my father. That was something my father would never tolerate. The emperor had already made the first move by summoning me to the capital. My father was ready to play that game, but he wasn't going to let any other stray dogs interfere. Su Dihai looked stunned. His face was a mix of shock, helplessness, and confusion. He didn't understand why my father was attacking him now. For years, they had maintained a peaceful coexistence. He guessed it was because of their conversation earlier that day. My father must have realized they were interested in me. Whether I am a manager or an inspector, it makes no difference to the prince, Su Dihai said, bowing his head low. I am insignificant. So you're saying a fourth-rank inspector is the same as a commoner in my eyes? My father snapped. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not that arrogant. Watch what you say, Inspector Sue. Lu Pai realized things were getting out of hand and stepped in to smooth things over. The prince is a pillar of the state. To him, a fourth-rank official is indeed small. Please, Prince, don't overthink things. Humph. Whether I'm overthinking it or not, he knows the truth, my father muttered. Su Dihai felt a cold sweat running down his back. He knew my father was intentionally making things difficult. If word got out that he had implied the Prince of Jingbei was more powerful than the emperor, he'd lose his head. Especially with Lu Pai, the emperor's personal confidant, standing right there. Please forgive my slip of the tongue, Prince, Su Dihai said, bowing even deeper. As Lu Pai said, I am a small official. I would never dare offend your majesty. My father stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone. Listen well. By the emperor's decree, Yongning leaves for the capital tomorrow. I don't care what your master is planning, but stay away from my son. If anyone dares to harm him, I will personally send them to meet the late emperor. The threat was crystal clear. He would deal with the emperor, but if anyone else tried to touch me, they would face his full fury. Su Dihai was terrified. You misunderstand, Prince. The young master is a genius. I only have respect for him. I would never have such thoughts. Lu Pai watched this, his brow furrowed and his fists clenched. He felt the weight of those words too. My father wasn't just threatening the inspector. He was threatening the palace. But Lu Pai also understood. My father only had one son. If anything happened to me, there was no telling what he would do. Lu Pai sighed internally. This was a high-stakes gamble. If anything went wrong, 20,000 northern troops might march on the capital. The emperor wanted to control me to secure the northern army without shedding blood, but if I was manipulated by the wrong people, that same army could become the tool that ended the dynasty. In Lu Pai's mind, the only way to truly secure the north was to eventually eliminate both my father and me. But for now, he forced a smile. Prince, I've heard this is the best restaurant in the north. I'm looking forward to the food. Su Dihai jumped on the chance to escape the tension. Yes. Our food is quite unique. Let me lead you upstairs. My father didn't push further. He had said enough. After you, Lu Pai. Meanwhile, far away in the capital city of Xinjiang, the lights were burning late in the imperial palace. Inside the main hall, a woman in elegant silk robes was busy organizing official scrolls by candlelight. Her brow was furrowed with exhaustion. This was the eldest princess of the great Zhou, Ji Feiyu. Some people called her a goddess who had descended from the heavens. Others said she was as cold and unreachable as a winter plum blossom on a frozen peak. To everyone in the Great Zhou, Princess Jifeiyu was a woman of peerless beauty and independent spirit. As she sat in the hall, a eunuch's voice broke the silence. Princess Xia Zhiqiu, the junior arbiter of the heaven government, seeks an audience. Let her in, Jifeiyu replied without looking up from her work. Xia Zhiqiu entered and bowed deeply. Greetings, eldest princess. Come, sit here. Jifeiyu smiled, patting the chair beside her. Xia Zhiqiu rose slowly. Thank you, your highness. Zhiqiu, I've told you many times, Jifeiyu said with a soft sigh. We are like sisters. There's no need for such formality. Etiquette cannot be discarded, Xia Zhiqiu replied firmly. It is my duty. Jifeiyu shook her head. You're becoming more like that old man Zhang Qixing every day. How is the Grand Arbiter's health lately? The Grand Arbiter is healthy and in high spirits, Xia Zhiqiu said. Jifeiyu gave a faint smirk. That old rogue. He eats well and sleeps well, and since he hasn't attended a morning court session in 3 years, of course his health is good. So, tell me, why have you come? Xia Zhiqiu stood up and performed a formal salute. I received a report from Shui Yuan, the master of the star-gazing department. Last night, he observed the heavens. The Ziwei star flickered. The 3 stars of calamity, 7 kills, army breaker, and greedy wolf, have converged. This is a sign of impending war. I fear conflict is coming to our Great Zhou. In the complex web of our government, the star-gazing department was usually overlooked. It was one of the 26 offices under the heaven government, and they rarely sent out reports. But throughout our history, whenever they did speak, the emperors listened. Jifeiyu took a deep breath, her mind racing. Where will the trouble start? Xia Zhiqiu shook her head. It isn't clear yet. The envoys from the kingdom of Yuanwu are arriving in the capital soon, Jifeiyu said, her voice dropping. This news must not be leaked. I will report this to my father immediately. Xia Zhiqiu nodded. I will take my leave then. Jifeiyu didn't waste a second. She hurried toward the Shining Palace. My father's reputation in the north was fearsome, but in the capital, Jifeiyu was the one people respected. The emperor, Longsheng, doted on her. Even though the court complained about a woman interfering in politics, the emperor ignored them. He had even joked that if she were a man, he would have made her the crown prince long ago. Inside the palace, Emperor Longsheng was practicing calligraphy. Father, you're practicing your writing? Jifeiyu approached the desk and began grinding the ink for him. The emperor laughed heartily. Feiyu, come, tell me what you think of my work today. She studied the paper. The strokes were bold and powerful, moving with the weight of thunder one moment and the grace of a flowing stream the next. It's magnificent, father, grand yet detailed. The emperor put down his brush and chuckled. You girl, you praise me so much I'm almost embarrassed to keep writing. Now, tell me why you're really here. I was organizing scrolls in the front hall when Xia Zhiqiu arrived, she started. The emperor raised a hand, cutting her off. He glanced at the servants. Everyone out. The maids and eunuchs filed out silently. Sit with me, the emperor said. For Xia Zhiqiu to visit you at this hour, it can't be good news. You are wise, father. The master of star-gazing saw a shift in the stars. He predicts a great military disaster is coming to the Great Zhou. The emperor sighed. Shui Yuan was Zhang Qixing's best student. If he says the stars are moving, he isn't wrong. The northern barbarians have only been quiet for a few years, and now more war? Our empire is becoming restless. Jifeiyu agreed. The Great Zhou had suffered from the northern tribes for a long time. Years ago, if my father, the Prince of Jingbei, hadn't teamed up with the Prince of Wuqing to wipe out their invasion force, the north would still be in chaos. Did Shui Yuan come with her? The emperor asked. No, Jifeiyu said. Only Xia Zhiqiu. The emperor's face darkened instantly. Ever since the Nanjing incident, Zhang Qixing hasn't attended court. I've been patient because of his age and his past service to me. But what is this? A matter of national security, and his student doesn't report to me? He sends a message through Xia Zhiqiu to you instead? Does Zhang Qixing still recognize me as his emperor? Jifeiyu stayed silent. She knew the history. The incident involving the Prince of Qi's illegal weapons was a thorn in their relationship. Zhang Qixing and my father had helped the emperor take the throne, But things had soured. My father held the army in the north, which made the emperor nervous. And the Prince of Qi, who was executed along with his entire family, was Zhang Qixing's son-in-law. "Why are you silent?" the emperor snapped. "Father, Zhang Qixing was your teacher," she said softly. "He is a man of integrity. He wouldn't disrespect you on purpose." "Then it's Shui Yuan acting out for his master's sake," the emperor muttered. "You worry too much, father. Xia Zhiqiu is the junior arbiter. It's natural for Shui Yuan to report to her." The emperor's expression didn't soften. "Feiyu, do you think I'm too paranoid? That I suspect the very men who put me on this throne?" Ji Feiyu knelt quickly. "I wouldn't dare." The emperor sighed and helped her up. "The history between us is complicated. The crown prince is kind, but he lacks the edge needed to rule in times of war. I worry he won't be able to hold the empire together when I'm gone." "You are in your prime, father," she reassured him. "The crown prince is young. He will learn." The heads of the 4 government branches, men like Zhang Qixing and Han Zhong, are old foxes. Their power is growing, and the imperial authority is feeling the pressure. Ji Feiyu knew he was right. To prevent a single minister from seizing power, the empire had been split into 4 main offices: heaven, earth, justice, and military. But now, the leaders of these offices were so powerful they rivaled the emperor himself. "Father," she said, "the Grand Arbiter might still be bitter about the past, but his loyalty to the Great Zhou is real. Didn't he just help you plan the strategy for the northern border?" "That old fox has his own motives," the emperor replied. "The plan for the north is risky. I only hope I don't regret this decision. I hope your father, Su Tsang, doesn't make things difficult for me." They talked late into the night, the shadow of war hanging over them. Meanwhile, back at the fragrant heaven pavilion in the north, the atmosphere was just as heavy. "The journey to the capital is long," my father said, taking a slow sip of wine. "As a father, I'm worried about my son's safety. I simply can't rest easy." "Don't make this difficult for me, Eunuch Lu." Lu Pai felt a cold sweat break out. He knew my father's money was hard to take, but he couldn't refuse it either. He had expected my father to make demands, but he hadn't expected this. "My prince, I understand your love for your son," Lu Pai said, his voice trembling slightly. "But for you to send your own troops to escort him to the capital, that is against every law in the books." It was a bold move. Too bold, honestly. The emperor had sent people to bring me to the capital, and my father's response was to send an army to escort me. It was a slap in the face. It was like he was saying he didn't trust the emperor or the imperial guard. Lu Pai sat there, his face twitching. He knew exactly what this looked like. "My prince," Lu Pai said, trying to stay calm. "His Majesty has shown great kindness. You shouldn't overthink this. But sending troops, it looks less like a father's love and more like a show of force." My father didn't blink. He just sipped his wine. "The road is long, Eunuch Lu. I'm just preparing for the unexpected. I'm sure the emperor will understand my gratitude." Lu Pai wanted to scream. Gratitude? This wasn't gratitude. But he knew he couldn't win an argument with the Prince of Jingbei. He sighed, defeated. "Fine. How many men? Which camp?" My father thought for a second. "Not many. Just 3,000. Lu Pai nearly choked on his wine. He spat it across the table, coughing. 3,000. My father nodded seriously. "Yes, only 3,000. 1,000. Lu Pai hissed through gritted teeth. "At most." My father didn't argue. "Fine. 1,000 it is." Before Lu Pai could even process how easily my father had agreed, the heavy doors swung open. A massive, burly man with skin as dark as charcoal stepped in. He looked like a mountain in human form. "Greetings, my prince," the giant boomed. "Stand up," my father said. "Meet Eunuch Lu. This is Zhang Yi." The giant gave a quick, respectful salute. Lu Pai's face went pale the moment he saw the armor the man was wearing. It was the black jade Kirin armor. This man was from the Xuanjia Guard. My heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew about the Xuanjia Guard. They were the most terrifying force in the north, separate from the regular army. They were 10,000 strong, 7,000 infantry, and 3,000 cavalry, all of them elite martial artists. Years ago, when the northern barbarians invaded with everything they had, the regular army was retreating. People thought the Great Zhou dynasty was finished. Then the Xuanjia Guard arrived. They rode 1,000 miles, ignored the odds, and smashed a barbarian army of 70,000. They left no survivors. They turned the border into a graveyard of white bones. There was a famous saying, "The Xuanjiao of the north are the best under heaven." Lu Pai looked like he wanted to cry. "My prince, even for an escort, you don't need the Xuanjia guard. Don't worry about it, eunuch," my father said with a smirk. "The emperor won't mind. The emperor won't mind, but I might lose my head," Lu Pai muttered. My father laughed it off. "As soon as my son arrives safely in the capital, they'll return. They won't stay a second longer." Lu Pai knew he was beaten. With the Xuanjia guard as my bodyguards, nobody would dare touch me. He stood up, gave a rushed, annoyed bow, and left. On his way back to the inn, he felt a deep sense of dread. He didn't believe for a second that those soldiers would just leave once they reached the capital. He just hoped the emperor wouldn't execute him for failing to stop this. Back in the pavilion, Zhang Yi knelt before my father. "My prince, I will protect the young master with my life." "It's not that dire," my father replied, his voice dropping. "The emperor wants Yongning in the capital to create a rift between us. If Yongning dies on the road, it's total war. They know that." "Let them try," Zhang Yi growled. "We aren't made of clay. Sometimes people kill without drawing blood," my father warned. "Just remember, no matter what happens in that city, you bring my son back to the north safely." "I swear it," Zhang Yi promised. "Tomorrow, leave with as much noise as possible," my father ordered. "Don't stop. Don't stay at inns. Head straight for the capital. And if Lu Pai tries anything, can your 1,000 men handle 2,000 imperial guards?" Zhang Yi laughed. "I could handle 4,000. While we prepared, far away at Changning Pass, a sharp-looking man stood on the city walls, staring into the distance. This was the king of Wuqing, another powerful figure. A servant approached him with news from the capital. "So, the emperor summoned the prince of Jingbei's son," the king mused. "The emperor must be getting desperate. Will Sutsang really agree to send his only son as a hostage?" the servant asked. "He will," the king replied. "He's the head of the 3 princes. He can afford to play this game. Besides, the Xuanjia guard will be with the boy. No one is stupid enough to attack them." A woman's voice interrupted them. "Husband, it's late and the wind is cold. Why aren't you home?" The king turned around, his tough exterior instantly melting. "Wanjun, I was just coming back now." He rubbed his nose awkwardly as his wife gave him a stern look. Even a legendary king was no match for his wife's temper. Back at our palace in the north, my father sat me down. The worry on his face was real now. "The capital is a mess of schemes, Yongning. Even with our army, we have to play their game for a while. When you get there, I want you to be loud. Be flashy." I was confused. "You've always told me to keep a low profile, to hide my strength." "That was here," he said. "In the capital, every eye will be on you. The more noise you make, the safer you are. If you're valuable, people will try to win you over. You'll get more benefits. So I'm just bait? In a way. But even as a useless prince, they need you because you're my son. They won't kill you unless they have no other choice. They aren't ready for a war with me yet." I realized then that I was a pawn in a massive game of chess. What if I joined the wrong side? My father laughed loudly. "Son, whichever side you join becomes the winning side. That is the power of the North. Never forget that." I looked at him, feeling a bit overwhelmed. If I were the emperor, I'd want to get rid of us too. We were way too powerful. "Do you think being a prince is easy?" my father asked, his face turning grim. "Look at what happened to the king of Qi. People die for this power. Did the king of Qi really plan to rebel?" I asked. My father's expression tightened, but he didn't answer. He just looked away, the weight of the past hanging heavy in the room. My father spoke with a sudden, sharp disdain. "The king of Qi? He was a failure and a waste. He didn't have the guts to rebel, let alone the ability." He cut himself off quickly, clearly hiding something deeper about the past. "I didn't push it. Yongning," he said, his voice dropping to a serious growl. "Remember this. The North is your shield. If you're ever backed into a corner, don't hesitate. We have the power to flip the entire table over. But above all else, stay alive. That is my only wish for you." I looked at him and nodded solemnly. I might be a soul from another world, but after 10 years together, Su Tsang was my father in every way that mattered. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll be fine." "Come out," my father called. A shadow flickered, moving like a ghost, and suddenly a figure appeared behind me. I jumped, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. When I turned around, I froze. Huge, intelligent eyes and legs that seemed to go on forever. She was stunning. I felt a bit of drool at the corner of my mouth. My father rolled his eyes and swiped the back of my head. Watch yourself. This is Yue, one of my hidden guards. She knelt gracefully. Greetings, Prince. Greetings, young lord. Get up, I said, still staring. My father smacked me again. Focus, brat. From now on, she's your personal maid. She's a master of assassination. Below the 8th realm of power, she can kill anyone at will. What about someone above the 8th realm? I asked. My father tilted his head, a dangerous smirk on his lips. Above the 8th realm? I'll kill them myself. I learned then that the North had a secret organization called the Shadow Seven. Yue was one of them. A peak 7th realm cultivator, brilliant and deadly. I couldn't help but grin. Dad, why didn't you introduce me to such a beautiful sister earlier? I know exactly what's going through that head of yours, he grumbled, flicking my forehead. He dismissed her, and as she walked away, I waved like an idiot. See you tomorrow, Yue. Before I left, my father hesitated. When you get to the capital, if you run into anyone from the Xiaoyu mansion, look out for them. The left wing or the right? I asked. He waved me off impatiently. Forget it. Just get out of here. The next morning, I headed to the northern camp. I didn't hold back. I took 1,000 Xuanjia cavalry with me. These weren't just soldiers. They were the elite of the elite. Every man and horse was clad in black gold chainmail, carrying heavy crossbows and long spears. The air around them felt heavy with the scent of iron and blood. Looking at them, I felt my blood boil. I felt like one of those legendary generals from the history books. I raised my arm and shouted, "The men of the North are peerless. We will swallow the world like a tiger. Long live the prince! Long live the prince!" 1,000 voices roared back. Move out, I commanded. On the other side of the city, the emperor's eunuch, Lu Pai, was waiting with the imperial guard. When he saw me approaching with 1,000 heavy cavalry, his face went pale. He probably expected a small escort or some fresh recruits. Instead, I brought the most feared killing machine in the empire. General Gua, Lu Pai whispered to the commander of the imperial guards, handing him a stack of banknotes worth 30,000 taels. Take this for your men. Gua Huan tried to refuse, but Lu Pai shook his head. I have no family, no children. I'm just a lonely soul in the palace. Take it. This journey will be dangerous. Dangerous? Gua Huan looked at the Xuanjia cavalry. You think they'll attack us? I hope not, Lu Pai muttered. Because if they do, even 2,000 more guards won't save us. They'll just be more ghosts in the dirt. Lu Pai knew my father had no intention of letting these soldiers return to the north. They were my leverage and a message to the emperor. I hopped off my horse in front of the palace gates and bowed slightly to the eunuch. Sorry to keep you waiting, Eunuch Lu. No matter, young lord. Let's begin our journey. Inside the palace, our old butler, Lao Gao, looked worriedly at my father. Aren't you going to see him off, my lord? Why bother? My father grumbled, though his eyes were fixed on the door. It's better he's gone so he stops bothering me. Lao Gao sighed. My father was a terrible liar. At the gates, I looked around until I saw a familiar figure walking toward me. I waved her over. Wei, over here. You may just call me Yue, my lord, she said softly. I didn't listen. I reached out, naturally took her hand in mine, and grinned. Let's go. To the capital. Meanwhile, far away in the capital city of Shengjing, the air was already thick with schemes. Inside the Grand Chancellor's manor, 2 men were talking. One was Situ Wan, a pillar of the state, and the other was the 7th prince, Ji Yun. The crown prince is away dealing with the floods, Situ Wan said, sipping his tea. You must secure the role of hosting the envoys from the Yuanwu kingdom. I will help you speak up in court. The game had already begun, and I was riding straight into the heart of it. The diplomatic relationship between our great Zhou and the Yuanwu kingdom was a matter of life and death for the western borders. This upcoming visit was led by their left chancellor, by Jin Gan, and accompanied by their 4th prince. Since they were sending a prince, our empire couldn't afford to look disrespectful. We had to choose a prince of our own to host them. Inside the Grand Chancellor's manor, Ji Yin looked at his grandfather, Situ-1. Grandfather, do you want me to befriend Wu Qingdao? Situ-1 set down his teacup. Wu Qingdao keeps a low profile, and his mind is far too deep. He's hard to get close to. Even though he's a prince, he has no real foundation in Yuanwu. He isn't worth your effort. Then what do you mean? Ji Yin asked. I want you to become a disciple under Bai Jinggan, Situ-1 replied. Ji Yin hesitated. But Bai Jinggan is the chancellor of Yuanwu. If I privately associate with him or join his sect, wouldn't that be inappropriate? Inappropriate. Situ-1 scoffed. You need to understand that Bai Jinggan isn't just a chancellor. He is ranked 5th on the world's literary list, a true great scholar of this age. Joining his sect will build your reputation and give you massive leverage in diplomatic negotiations for years to come. I understand, grandfather, Ji Yin said, bowing before he left. Situ-1 took a slow sip of tea and closed his eyes. A moment later, his old servant, Mingda, stepped into the room. Lu Pai should have reached Yin City by yesterday, shouldn't he? Situ-1 asked without opening his eyes. Yes, master. They arrived yesterday. Tell our people to be ready, Situ-1 commanded. Don't get tangled up with the Imperial Guards. Just find an opening and assassinate Su Tsong's son. But don't force it if the moment isn't right. Situ-1 was a man of immense power. He controlled the Department of Government, one of the 4 great pillars of the Great Zhou. Under him were 6 major divisions, from national taxes to military secrets. He held a rank just below the emperor himself. He had been a high official since the current emperor was just a prince, and after the succession, his daughter was made the imperial noble consort. While other officials had been pushed aside when the new emperor took the throne, Situ-1 remained. He was the head of the Situ clan, a family that had existed even before the Great Zhou was founded. He was a master of survival. Master, Mingda whispered, I don't understand one thing. The emperor clearly fears the Prince of Jingbei, but bringing his son to the capital as a hostage seems risky. If anything happens to the boy, isn't the emperor afraid Su Tsong will actually rebel? This doesn't seem like the emperor's usual cautious style. Situ-1 stood up and stroked his beard. If I'm not mistaken, this is the work of that old fox, Zhang Qixing. Back then, Zhang Qixing and Su Tsong both helped the emperor take the throne. Over time, the emperor grew wary of Su Tsong's military power, but he also had a falling out with Zhang Qixing over an old arms case. Right now, the emperor's grip on the court is weakening. He paced slowly. Bringing the boy to the capital looks like a way to restrain the north, but that's not the real goal. Zhang Qixing is playing a dangerous game. If he succeeds, he'll change the entire balance of the court. Those 20,000 northern troops aren't like the useless drunkards in our capital's military. Mingda blinked. You mean, the emperor isn't trying to restrain the north, but to win them over? It's not that simple, Situ-1 said, walking toward the backyard pond. The emperor wants to abolish the vassal system entirely. Mingda gasped. Abolish the vassals? That's incredibly dangerous. The country is weak, and foreign enemies are watching us like hawks. How does he dare? The emperor doesn't dare, Situ-1 muttered. But Zhang Qixing does. Bringing the boy here is the first step. The second step will be a marriage. I expect the emperor to offer either the 4th or 6th princess to Su Tsong's son very soon. Situ-1's eyes turned sharp. A royal marriage will mess up everyone's plans, including mine. Once the boy is the emperor's son-in-law, it's perfectly legal to keep him in the capital forever. The Prince of Jingbei will be tied down. The Prince of Jinan is old, and his family is busy fighting each other. If the north stays quiet, how long can the other regional lords last? So, abolishing the vassals is actually possible? Mingda asked, sweat beading on his forehead. It's the 3rd step, Situ-1 said. And once the emperor succeeds in that, he'll come for us next. That's why we have to act. Zhang Qixing thinks he can predict the stars, but he can't predict a dead boy. He paused, thinking for a moment. Send another team. If our first group can't kill the boy, have the second team protect him instead. It's never wise to put all your eggs in one basket. While these schemes unfolded in the dark, I was on the road. The world I had traveled to was vast. To our north was the Jin Kingdom, the fierce barbarians. To the northwest was the powerful Yuanwu Kingdom. Our Great Zhou and Yuanwu had been rivals for centuries. A few months ago, tensions had flared at the border. Now, Bai Jinggan was coming to negotiate, but it was more of a challenge than a peace talk. Situwen wanted his grandson, Ji Yun, to side with Bai Jinggan even if it meant giving up some territory. To him, a little land was a fair price to pay for a powerful mentor and a future throne. Outside Yin City, our massive convoy moved forward. Gua Huaiyan and the Imperial Guards led the way, while my father's elite black armor cavalry flanked my carriage. I lay back inside the carriage, watching the scenery. Yue sat beside me, quiet and attentive. As I looked at the soldiers, I thought back to my childhood in the capital. Back then, the new emperor and my father were like brothers. But brothers can become enemies very quickly when a crown is involved. I closed my eyes, wondering what kind of welcome was waiting for me in the heart of the empire. I used to spend a lot of time in the palace as a kid. In my memories, there was a princess who was an absolute nightmare. She was a little tyrant, always following me around, and together, we turned the entire Forbidden City upside down. We caused so much trouble that the palace staff lived in constant fear of our next prank. But 10 years ago, my father, Su Tsang, received urgent news from the northern border. We had to leave the capital, Shengjing, and return to Yin City. It had been a decade since I last saw that little crybaby. I wondered how she was doing. Deep within the Moonflower Palace in Shengjing, the air was turning cold. A maid leaned in, whispering that autumn had arrived and offering to add another layer of clothing to her mistress. The woman she spoke to was Ji Yuehua, the fifth princess, also known as Princess Anqing. She looked out at the falling leaves, her mind drifting. It had been nearly 10 years since that guy left the capital. Ji Yuehua was a legendary beauty. Her face was like a peach blossom, her eyes like autumn water, and her skin as smooth as jade. She was ranked 4th on the empire's list of most beautiful women, but her personality was anything but delicate. She was fierce. She loved martial arts, hated restrictions, and spent most of her time dressed in men's clothing. In the circle of wealthy socialites in Shengjing, her name was enough to make people tremble, yet every nobleman in the city secretly dreamed of winning her heart. She remembered our first meeting clearly. She had asked me which palace I belonged to. I told her my name was Su Ping. She told me hers was Ji Yuehua, which sounded like a flower. I teased her about it, and she got annoyed, telling me she was 6 years old, a whole year older than me, and that I had to call her sister. I just laughed. I told her she could be the sister, but she had to call me Liang Zai, which meant handsome boy. She didn't understand the word, but she agreed. From that day on, we were inseparable. We were the twin terrors of the palace. We climbed trees to steal bird eggs, fished the precious koi out of the imperial ponds, and sneaked into the kitchens to steal the emperor's snacks. The emperor, my father's old friend, used to complain that if I didn't leave soon, he'd lose years off his life from the stress. He even joked about marrying her off to me when we grew up. She had acted tough back then, but when the day finally came for me to leave for the north, she was heartbroken. "I'll wait for you in the capital," she had screamed as my carriage pulled away. I had looked back and laughed, promising I would return. Back in the present, Ji Yuehua's face flushed red as she remembered those days. That jerk. He had been gone for 10 years and hadn't written a single letter. Not even a word. She gripped her fists tight, muttering that she was going to break his legs the moment he stepped foot in the city. Her maid teased her, asking if she really had the heart to hurt him, and the princess immediately turned her playful wrath on the girl. Meanwhile, back on the road, I let out a sudden shiver. The weather was definitely getting colder as we neared the capital. We were only a few days away now, but danger was already waiting for us. On the main road to Xinjiang, a group of men gathered in the shadows of the forest. Their leader was a man named Gao Yi, a cold-blooded killer with a deep scar running down his face. He was the man Situ Mingda had sent to ensure I never reached the city alive. One of his scouts, Wu Zong, reported that my convoy would reach Qiupo Ridge by nightfall. We had 2,000 Imperial Guards with us, while they only had 100 men. Gao Yi knew a direct assault was suicide. He asked about the reinforcements from the Moon Shadow Tower, a famous guild of assassins. Wu Zong told him they had sent 5 killers, but they were only at the 6th realm of power. Gao Yi scoffed. He thought the leader of the Moon Shadow Tower was playing a joke. My father was the 2nd strongest man in the world, a peak 9th realm master. Did they really think a few 6th realm assassins could kill his son? I was surrounded by elite guards and protected by Lu Pai, a powerful eunuch. Are we here to kill him or just deliver ourselves as a snack? Gao Yi muttered. Suddenly, a shadow flickered through the trees. Gao Yi didn't hesitate. He whipped a short blade toward the movement. There was a metallic clang as the blade was deflected. A flirtatious, chilling laugh echoed through the woods. Two figures stepped into the light. One was a woman with a seductive gaze, and the other was a man with a face as cold as stone. Gao Yi lowered his sword, his expression turning serious. He recognized them immediately. They were the top-tier killers of the Moon Shadow Tower, the cold-faced scholar and the soul-snatching shadow. Both were 7th Realm masters. The woman, Mei Ying, walked up to Gao Yi and ran a finger along his subordinate's shoulder. She asked with a deadly smile if he still thought they were just a snack. With these two joining the hunt, the road ahead was about to turn into a graveyard. The Earth-rank killers were all 6th Realm masters, 18 in total. Behind them, the Heaven and Yellow ranks consisted of warriors in the 4th and 5th realms. Now, with the Moon Shadow Tower sending 5 6th Realm assassins and 2 7th Realm powerhouses, it was clear they were putting everything into this mission. Wu Zong rubbed the back of his head, trying to play off his earlier insults. He told Mei Ying she had to be joking. With her and the cold-faced scholar there, he claimed men like Guo Huaiyan and Lu Pai were nothing more than rotten fish and shrimp. He laughed, acting like they weren't even worth worrying about. Mei Ying couldn't help but cover her mouth as she let out a dark laugh. She called him little brother and asked if he really thought Lu Pai was that simple. She reminded him that Lu Pai was one of the 3 greatest experts in the Imperial City. Wu Zong looked at Gao Yi, his confidence wavering. He asked just how powerful the eunuch really was. Before Gao Yi could answer, the cold-faced scholar, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was icy. He explained that Lu Pai had spent decades mastering the primordial truth, and his cultivation had reached the middle of the 8th realm. The forest went dead silent. Wu Zong's face fell instantly. He muttered that if they were facing an 8th realm master, they were still just delivering themselves as snacks. Shut up, Gao Yi snapped, glaring at his subordinate. He told him to stop talking nonsense. Before we had set out, Situ Mingda had already given Gao Yi his orders. He told him not to obsess over the result, only to do his best. Even so, Gao Yi was conflicted. The Imperial Guard was massive, and with experts like Lu Pai and Guo Huaiyan protecting me, the success rate looked miserable. But Gao Yi knew he didn't need to understand the plan. He just had to follow it. The cold-faced scholar looked around at the worried faces. He told them not to worry about Lu Pai. Their tower master would personally step in to pin the eunuch down. Gao Yi nodded, feeling a wave of relief. If the leader of the Moon Shadow Tower was coming, their chances changed completely. Mei Ying played with a strand of her hair, glancing mockingly at Gao Yi. She asked if anyone still thought her tower master was just here for a joke. Gao Yi kept his face expressionless and cupped his hands in a formal apology, admitting he had spoken out of turn. The cold-faced scholar cut the small talk short. He wanted to know the plan. Gao Yi thought for a moment. He predicted the Imperial Guard would reach Autumn Slope Ridge tonight. That was where they would strike. His men would tie down the main body of the guards. Since the tower master was handling Lu Pai, Gao Yi would take on the commander, Guo Huaiyan. He looked at the 2 assassins and asked if they could handle my father's personal guards. The cold-faced scholar nodded. It was feasible. While the experts fought, the 5 6th Realm assassins would focus entirely on one goal, killing me. Meanwhile, inside my carriage, I was leaning back, casually eating fruit. I asked Ying Yue if she thought the Emperor would make things difficult for me once we reached Xinjing. She thought about it for a second and told me not to worry. She believed the Emperor wouldn't hurt me because I was a crucial piece on his chessboard. I was the bridge he needed to rebuild trust, or at least a connection, with my father. I shook my head. I told her I didn't see it that way. If I were the Emperor, I'd suppress me publicly, pushing me away to make everyone think we were enemies. Ying Yue frowned, confused. I explained that while I was being bullied in public, he could secretly win me over. By pushing me toward the opposition, he'd lower their guard. Then, by the time they realized I was actually his man, it would be too late. She nodded slowly, impressed by my logic. But before she could respond, the entire column ground to a halt. A voice shouted for the troops to stop. I pulled back the curtain and looked out, wondering what was going on. A soldier informed me that eunuch Lu Pai had ordered the halt. I hopped down from the carriage and walked toward the front of the line. Lu Pai saw me approaching and sighed. He pointed toward the area ahead of us, Autumn Slope Ridge. He told me the place was usually teeming with the sounds of birds and beasts at night, but tonight, it was eerily silent. The dust was thick, and the clouds were blocking the moon. He was certain there was an ambush waiting for us. Guo Huaiyan rode up to join us. Lu Pai suggested sending a few scouts ahead to check the ridge. I looked at the massive formation of heavy cavalry and shook my head. I told them not to bother with all that trouble. Lu Pai looked at me, puzzled, and asked for my brilliant opinion. I told them to just light the torches and have the infantry form a square. We would put the heavy cavalry on all four sides, surrounding the guards, and just march straight through the front door. Guo Huaiyan thought about it for a long time before nodding. He agreed with my plan. Unless the enemy had an army of 10,000 men waiting in the trees, they wouldn't be able to break a formation like that.